10 things I wish I knew about Japanese learning when I was first starting out. When it comes to Japanese, still have a long way to go and lots to learn. But learning, make mistakes, and apply plenty of learning theories. Looking back now, when I was wee lad, so naive and innocent, I've come up with a list of 10 things I really wish I had known during the days of youth. I did mention incredible good-lookingness. That would make my Japanese learning life so much easier, but now the information is going to be gifted to you, so your early Japanese learning can be filled with unicorns and candy. You ready? Let's learn about Japanese learning regrets. Avoid these. Focus on your ability to recall, not memorize. Memorization is the focus of most Japanese classes. Memorize words, memorize kanji. Memorization is so Japanese too, but all that sucks, and it's not at all how our brain learns anything. While memorization has its place in learning, it's not the memorization that's important, it's the recall. So instead of focusing on getting things into your head, focus on getting things out. It's not as simple as you might think, too. In terms of pure recall ability, there are a lot of things you can do to make your learning much more effective. Try learning 5 different things at the same time, as in one right after another. Although different, they should be related things as well. For example, learn a vocab word, a kanji, a grammar term, and practice with a bit of audio, all as one set, then rinse and repeat. This is more effective than, say, learning 10 vocab words at a time, then repeating. The progress will feel slower than if you do a single subject group all at once, but your recall is going to be better if you do it this way. Why? Because each time you rotate back around to vocab, you're practicing recalling vocab. Each time you rotate back to learning a kanji, you're forced to practice recalling the previous kanji. It's forcing recall over memorization. Doing the same thing over and over just puts you into autopilot. After you take or read a lesson, take notes. Note the word after. It's very important. Writing notes while you're listening or reading something is pretty useless. You can use it later to memorize, I suppose, but in the end you're not learning as much. If you take notes afterwards. You focus on recall, not memorization, and guess what? You end up recalling more the first time. The more you struggle to recall something, the more easy it is to recall next time. So you should actually try to make it hard to recall an item. The trick, though, is to not forget something so much that you can't recall it at all. If you can't recall something, you can't make the memory and recall of that thing better either. The harder it is to recall this thing, the more effort your brain will put into recalling it better. So try to wait as long as possible before you practice recalling an item. Try to catch it right before you're about to forget it. This is why SRS and mnemonics are so good. We'll talk about that in a moment. So next time you catch yourself trying to memorize something, recall that what you really need to do is practice recalling, because that's what will help you out in the long run. It's like a hard drive. You can store as much information as you want inside, but if you have no way of recalling that information, it's pretty much useless. You ought to focus on weak points. You're only as strong as your weakest point. Nobody likes to do things they aren't good at, but that's what separates the pros from the not really good at anything people. The snowball fighting team that wins the championship didn't ignore the things they were bad at. Olympic gold medalists don't ignore what they aren't good at. No, they focus on their weak points. Why? Because it makes everything else so much better. With Japanese, I've learned you have to focus on your weak points too. Weak points will only get weaker, and they will constantly hold you back. For example, if your weak point is kanji, it's not just kanji that's poor, your grammar is poor. Why? Because when you're reading, you constantly have to stop and see what each kanji means, which means you read less stuff, which means your grammar isn't as good. What happens when your grammar isn't as good? You're speaking, you're listening, don't get better either. All this could be fixed by focusing on your weak points in our made-up world that's kanji. Even though working on something you aren't good at sucks, it'll make everything so much better in the long run. If you want to get better, it's an absolute must. So what's something you're bad at in Japanese? You should spend most of your time working on that until it's no longer a weak point. Then choose something new that's the new weak point and repeat. You should learn more kanji earlier. Kanji is one of those things that most people take forever to learn, but just like in the example for number 9, it affects a lot of other things. More than any other part of learning Japanese, kanji can help or hurt you. I'd rather it help you. The more kanji you learn, the more effectively you can study. That's all there is to it. Not going to go into how to learn kanji more quickly right now, that's 4 points farther down the list. I will, however, that it's a long-term mistake to not learn as much kanji as you can now. Keep reading to figure out better ways to do that, though, because the traditional approach won't let you learn very much kanji very fast. Existence of SRS learning. One thing I had no idea that existed back in the day is SRS. That's a spaced repetition system. Spaced repetition system of choice around here tends to be Anki, but there's plenty other as well. The idea behind it is pretty simple. SRS programs show you things based on how well you could recall them the time before. See, recall is good. For example, if you could recall the kanji very easily, it might not show you that card again for a couple of months, if you've recalled it several times easily anyway. But if you had trouble recalling it or couldn't recall it at all, it might show you later that session or the next day. Basically, it's just flashcards, but it tries to stretch out that recall time so you better memorize things. Right before you're about to forget it, something a proper SRS should show that thing to you, make you recall it, making that memory stronger every time. SRS might be pretty commonplace in today's world, but when I was in school, I was just sat there trying to memorize one thing after another like some kind of chump. It was terrible. Most of the time, I'd barely be able to get anything in my short-term memory long enough to pass the test, then promptly forget everything I just learned. SRS solves all that. If you're not using an SRS program, you should. It does a lot of the recall memorization work for you, though you still got to work a little. The existence of the other kanji radicals. Samurai, winter, triceratops, snake, two-face, poop, mullet, 20, nailbat, tsunami, animal, alligator, loiter, husband, axe, energy, pelican, bed, life, old, sweet, elephant, rice paddy, white. I knew this one, warrior I think it is, although maybe it's not, because those ones seem sort of level. Yeah, a lot of these radicals meanings are made up, but that's because traditional radicals are so useless. Radicals. Oh, radicals. These are the radical things. In high school, oh wait a minute. Oh yeah. In high school, I learned about kanji radicals in a way that would allow me to look up kanji in dictionaries. These are the radicals most Japanese teachers know about and use, but these radicals aren't that helpful, of course. Because of this, I had to learn kanji stroke by stroke by stroke. 18 stroke kanji, that's 18 different things I had to remember, making learning one kanji really, really difficult. These other radicals, however, are different. Every kanji, and I mean every kanji, should really only be made up of 3 parts, aka 3 radicals. Basically, these radicals are parts that make up a kanji. They're like smaller kanji, or pieces of kanji, that you can piece together to make a bigger kanji. Although there are around 200 radicals, depending on whose list you use, learning these 200 radicals can be pretty easy if you use mnemonics and SRS to learn them. Once you know these 200-ish radicals, I know it sounds like a lot, but it's not. All kanji can be created with 3 or fewer radicals. It's sort of like the difference between putting together a puzzle with 3 pieces, easy peasy lemon squeezy, or putting together a puzzle with 20 pieces while memorizing where each piece goes for the next time you have to put it together. Over time, this really, really adds up. If I had known about these kind of radicals a lot earlier, I would have known a lot more kanji a lot earlier too. Japanese school kids spend around 6 years learning their Joyo kanji. Japanese language learners spend an upwards of 10 years learning kanji. All this can be cut down to a fraction of both of those time frames if you use radicals and mnemonics. Learning kanji faster than a Japanese school kid, strangely enough, it's no problem at all. There's various methods for learning with radicals, including Hessigs, text fugu, and kanji damage. All have their good points and bad points. Just using the one that seems to work best. Classrooms and teachers can slow you down, but also help a lot too. A lot of my Japanese learning has been in classrooms, so I've learned a lot from that experience. Classes are great because you have a teacher there to tell you what you're doing wrong, but classes can also slow you down. Unless you're the slowest person in the class is always going to prevent you from learning things as quickly as you can. If you're in a class, I'd recommend studying outside the class. You could focus on your weak points. You could study kanji separately from everyone, because kanji helps with everything. There's any number of things you can do. Even grabbing another resources and studying with it is good, because either it will fill in the gaps of things you're not learning in your class, or it will reinforce things you've learned and explain it in a different way. Whatever you do, though, study outside the classroom is great. You shouldn't be tricked into thinking that a classroom is all you need. Think of a classroom as just a supplement of your learning, because there's really so much more you can do. Don't learn kanji in the order they tell you. They're liars, all of them. Perhaps I sound like a heretic, but I think kanji ordering is important, and the ordering they tell you is a false ordering. There's two ways to do ordering. One is traditional and one is my way. And I'm sure other people have other ways that are just as good. The traditional way has you learn like a Japanese school kid learns, aka in order of easy meaning to difficult meaning, which has nothing to do with how complicated the kanji itself is. So for example, you learn way before you learn, although the meaning is way easier than, which is why little kids with small brains learn them in this order. The kanji is not, and I'm guessing you're kind of old now, so the meanings aren't really that difficult for you, but the kanji part is. So why would you learn them in this order when meaning has nothing to do with anything? Now, for me, I think it makes more sense to learn in order of simple to difficult kanji, not the meaning. There's a problem with this, though. I think it's a problem only short-term thinkers will worry about. The problem is that you don't learn the most useful kanji first, which means you can't use the kanji in real life as quickly either. You're missing a lot of really basic kanji for a long time, and people don't like that. I understand why that's rough, but the goal for me is long-term, not short-term. By learning in this order, you can use previous kanji to learn future kanji. You also get better at learning kanji, and you struggle less on a per kanji basis than you do the traditional approach, because you slowly get more and more difficult as you get better. If the goal is to learn all the Joyo kanji, and I'd say this is the goal, then going in order of difficulty of the kanji itself is the way to go. You won't be able to use the kanji as quickly, which is a bummer, but you'll learn all the kanji way faster. So short term you miss out on being able to apply the kanji. Long term you just end up knowing all the kanji. I'll take the long term approach any day. Learning Japanese is a long term thing anyway. You have time. Learning to write isn't all that useful. I'm not saying it's not beautiful, I'm just saying it's a waste of your time right now. I've written about this on Tafogo before, and I even have people take this somewhat controversial approach on text-free. Many people say this is crazy, but those people can keep their pages and hand pens and join the Pen 15 club. Writing isn't as important as it used to be. In fact, it's hardly important at all, especially when we start talking kanji. Now don't get confused when I say writing, I mean handwriting, not typing. Typing is great. Think about it, when was the last time you wrote anything with your hand? For me, I think it was when I signed a restaurant bill, and Japanese tend to use cash anyway, so no problem there. But I know, writing helps you remember kanji, blah blah blah. Maybe it does help you, but I don't think it's necessary to learn kanji, and I think it takes up more time than it gives you. Think of it this way, you could spend an extra 5 minutes practicing writing the kanji, or you could spend that 5 minutes learning to read the next kanji on your list. What does that achieve? That makes your kanji learning twice as fast, probably faster than that if you consider how much you end up practicing writing of previous kanji later on. So the question you have to ask yourself is, do I want to be able to write this kanji, or do I want to learn another kanji? Over time this adds up. That being said, I'm not saying you absolutely shouldn't learn a handwrite. I am saying, however, that you shouldn't learn it right now. Learn it after you learn everything else. Learn it when it isn't keeping you from studying more important and useful things. I don't know how many hours I wasted trying to write kanji back in school. The moment I realised it didn't matter if I learned to write or not, I suddenly learned so much more. It's amazing how much time you gain by cutting this out of your routine. Most people tell you that you should learn it because that's how it's always been done. I say you should think about why you're doing something and come up with your own conclusions. Mnemonics aren't cheating. I didn't know about mnemonics for a long time, which sucks. I also thought mnemonics were nothing more than parlor tricks when I first learned about them. And I'm a mistake now, I can't believe I've ever lived without them. Mnemonics are boss, and if you're not using mnemonics, you're probably hanging out in the dust. I'm not going to go into a huge thing about mnemonics here, but here's the quick and skinny. Mnemonics are basically techniques that allow you to associate one thing already in your brain with something that's outside of your brain and needs to get in. To do this, you create hooks in your brain, or you use stories that are more memorable and add the new knowledge you want to remember to those. The goal of a mnemonic is to help you to recall an item, not necessarily to make you memorize something. Perfectly fit the first time. Think of it this way, your brain is full of memories. Each of those memories have little arms that can grab onto things. If you use a mnemonic, the thing you're trying to memorize will latch on to one of those hands. To remember the new memory, you just have to remember the thing already in your brain, which is way easy to do, and then use that to get to the new memory you want to recall. Do this enough and you'll eventually be able to recall that new memory without using the old one, and then it's memorized. Now, if you try to memorize something without a mnemonic, it's like you're throwing an item into a dark hole in your brain. It tries to catch on to something, but there's no hands to clasp onto. It keeps sliding off the side of your brain, falling out. Eventually it might stick, but there'll be nothing connected to it. When you try to retrieve it, your brain doesn't have any good way of getting there, so you just can't recall it very easily. If you do this enough, sure, it'll end up working. How much time have you wasted? Connecting a new memory to an old one is essentially what mnemonics do for you. It's how your brain works and will help you to remember a lot. Most common in Japanese, people use mnemonics to memorize kanji, though I think there's other ways to use mnemonics as well that haven't been explored as much. Just like this week, we started adding mnemonics to vocab text fugu, which I'm pretty excited about. Vocab, really abstract thing to learn, and mnemonics help a ton. I should have made more mistakes. Won't be making that mistake again. The number one thing I wish I had done about a long time ago was mistakes. Seems simple enough, but when you think about it, we're wired to try to avoid making mistakes. It's embarrassing, it's painful, yada yada yada. And mistakes aren't things that we as humans like to make. Probably mistakes usually meant death for us. But what if I told you that mistakes made you learn way faster and you won't die too because saber-toothed cats don't exist anymore? There's a few reasons for this. If you're not making mistakes, you're not pushing boundaries. If you're not pushing boundaries, you're going to end up learning at a slower pace. If you're afraid of making mistakes, you won't try to learn new things. To learn new things, you have to make a lot of mistakes. If you make a mistake, you can learn what you did wrong. Going back and learning why you did something wrong gives you better insight into the thing you're learning. If you're not doing this, you're just skimming the surface. If you're not willing to make mistakes, you're probably not willing to practice conversation with people. Practicing conversation is really important. It helps you to practice recalling things you've learned in new and different situations. Remember how important recalling information is for learning? Mistakes mean you're trying. If you're trying, well, that means you're trying, you should try more. The list actually goes on and on. No matter who you are, you can strive to make more mistakes. The important thing, however, is learning from them. That's why I wrote this post, in fact, so you can learn from your own mistakes. Just remember though, if you don't learn from your mistakes, you're wasting time by making the same mistakes over and over again. So the question is, and this is going to be a goldmine of info, what mistakes did you make? What would you change about your Japanese learning past if you could? Let the younglings know what they ought to be doing in the comments below. Hope at least one of these things have helped you to. Hit Twitter, Facebook, Google. Let me see, mistakes. I'm trying to recall something. Okay, Wakari Mas understand, Wakari Masen don't understand. Hidari left, Migi right. I gotta find the thing I was looking for, the thing that gave you tips of writing left on your hand and writing right on your hand. Hidari, Migi, Hidari, Migi, Hidari, Migi. What mistakes have I made? I don't know, I can't remember what mistakes I've made. See, I haven't made enough. I haven't made enough. Let's read the comments. Very nice post. I totally agree that handwriting is less effective, but depending on learners, for those who just want to recognize characters, not write. There is also another way which I am doing constantly as part of practice, is thinking about my everyday stuff in target language instead of mother first language. It really helps. Second thing is L2 not L1 exercise. Actually, Titanic disaster did not teach anything. See for example, Costa Concordia shipwreck, where the captain waited 2 hours before starting the evacuation. I tried to learn to write kanji stroke by stroke too. Then in a beautiful summer day, I finally acknowledged the radical's existence and thought, crying at the same time, I'm so stupid, why I didn't realise earlier. Then a new kanji learning era appeared. I have to disagree with not learning to write Japanese, though it's just an opinion. Not writing kanji vocab, but they come up on flashcards, make the review sessions faster, yes. But if it takes you more reviews to be able to recall the item successfully, surely that's much slower in the long run. Say writing down a word as you review it makes it take 2 reviews before you can say I remember that win. Now, not writing down the word, not engaging your motor memory makes it take 4 reviews before you get it right. In this made up example, that's taking twice as many reviews to learn the item, even though each time you review it without writing takes about 2 seconds shorter than if you took the time to write it out too. You have to take into account the time learning spent learning how to write, but that's like one-off time expenditure. The more I make time save later, solar panels on roof, but profit and learning Japanese comes much sooner. That makes sense. Blah blah blah. I don't join kanji writing party, but I'm not writing too much. Writing applies to motor memory or whatever memory it is, but it helps the radicals to settle down in my brain. But it's not about writing the same kanji X times every morning. I start with Anki and a piece of paper. Make a list of the kanji readings I had in a session, then turn off the Anki and rewrite the readings back to kanji. Maybe this is what about recalling and writing. And one more thing, what do you think about learning a whole word made of kanji? Nihon something present. Nihon and something else in the present. Instead of learning onyomi and kanyomi to every single kanji, whole words rule for me. I do actually really try to learn whole words in groups where kanji overlap, especially if the meaning is a little different each word. It helps me form association with desperate ideas that makes recalling somehow much easier. It's like I could target the whole group instead of one word in a void. I like to practice write kanji, the manga, blah blah, hitting a wall, and I forgot to say that writing kanji produces lots of nice kanji decorated paper. Whole words made of kanji, completely agree. Very good post, one of the best I'd say. I'll give my 2 cents. Rewriting the kanji, I think people get caught up in writing them perfectly, which is where the time is wasted, but anyone who has written 20, 30, 40, etc. kanji knows that by a certain point your hand muscles just start adapting to how to write a stroke, and you don't need to spend all day getting kanji down perfectly. I think it's misleading to say or have people think that writing is a waste of time. It is if you're spending all day trying to write whatever that is perfectly. But I also agree with you, Kochi, in that having the mindset of I need to write it to know is not a good mindset to have either. One thing most people that do spend time writing kanji will surely find out is that after you know every radical element possible, you'll pretty much know how to write kanji based on the simple fact that you'll understand the ordering of radicals or elements. Everyone has their mind made up when it comes to this topic. All I'd say is that if you're helping, you then keep going, but if you're wasting all day trying to write kanji perfectly and stop wasting your time writing perfect kanji, is not important in today and time. One thing in favour of language classes, practicing conversation with yourself makes you feel a little insane. There are other ways to get communication experience, but the time and money invested in the class ensures that you have opportunity to practice speaking and thinking of responses to questions you wouldn't get in book flashcards. Language groups, Skype chats, or studying abroad would definitely help in those areas, but they each have their own shortcomings. Would definitely help. What is there to defy here? Definitely, oh, you know what you meant. Question, what if my weak point is actually practicing Japanese? That seems my problem. I had enormous difficulty. In my opinion, 2 major reasons. You have not got your mind around the word order reversal, so practice hurts. And to this, the only solution is practice and pain. You are like we all are, terrified of jumping into a meaning system that means nothing to you. Humans hate unmeaning. When you first speak Japanese until someone nods or answers, you might as well be speaking gibberish. It feels like you're speaking pure unmeaning. There may be a way of overcoming this by actually trying to speak gibberish. One, you can speak gibberish, but it's surprisingly hard despite the lack of rules. Then Japanese may be easy. Sid Kesa. Sid what? Whose line is it anyway? The grammar point sort of makes sense. Since when I read Japanese I end up getting the message jumbled, confused. Grammar. Blah 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 blah. Did you speak gibberish? Blah blah blah. Sort of blah blah blah. Oh, fucking gibberish. I can't be bothered speaking gibberish. Let's see what he said. Japanese gibberish. Let's type that in. Japanese gibberish. Gibberish. Yes, it works. Gibberish Japanese. Yeah. Japanese gibberish. Meow. Gibberish Japanese. Give gibberish. Gibberish. Any random sounds of gibberish. Spewing Japanese gibberish. I love gibberish. Tends to focus on teaching students things that don't matter. Previous kings named, wives, adventures, fill up school time. What is important is to teach students how to actually study. That's something you'll figure out by yourself at the end of university years. Most people don't even go to university thanks to that. Not realising this sooner is definitely a mistake for me. I'm spending over 8 hours a day catching up with things I never learned. The thing is, I'm actually enjoying it. Once you figure out how to do it, everything becomes more simple. Thanks for making this helpful list. Though I enjoy writing kanji by hand, so I think I'll continue doing it anyway. Double plus good, awesome, hopefully addicted to mnemonics since conquer 2000 kanji like a boss. Dying to teach, seriously, ambulance. few gems here that I'm going to incorporate, but don't they spend more than 6 years learning the kanji? I'm pretty sure the 6 years are for Kyoku Kanji, which covers approximately half of the standard Joyu Kanji. And I think writing the kanji varies in usefulness from person to person. I use scritter to write mine, which he calls the SRS safe bunch of trees. Kudos to you for voicing seemingly fringe opinion of not prioritizing writing. I do know that forgoing kanji is necessary. Blah, blah, blah. Beginners start with simple text. Learning hiragana. Kanji drill book. Memorize. What's this? Memorize. The fun. It's free. Japanese. There you are. It's free. Well, I got 94,000 words here, 25,000 words there. I'll bookmark this. Kana. Let's click on Japanese kana. Let's have a look. Japanese kana. Hiragana. Katakana. A, I, U, E, O, Kaki, Ku, Ke, Go, Sashi, Su, Se, So, Tachi, Su, Te, To, Nani, Nu, Ne, No, Ma, Ha, Hi, Hu, He, Ho, Ma, Mi, Mu, Me, Mo, Ya, Yu, Yo, La, Li, Lu, Le, Lo, Wa, O, Un, Gagi, Gu, Ge, Go, J, Wa, Gagi, Gu, Ge, Go, Za, Ji, Zu, Ze, Zo. I think Za, oh yeah. Za, Ji, Zu, Zo. Da, Di, Du, nah, Da, Ji, Zu, De, Do. Ba, Bi, Bu, Be, Bo. Pa, Pi, Pu, Pe, Po. Kya, Kyu, Kyo. Sha, Shu, Sho. Cha, Chu, Cho. Na, Nya, Nyu, Nyo. Pya, Kya, Kyu, Hyo. Mya, Mu, Myo. La, Lu, Lo. Gya, Yu, Gyo. Jia, Ju, Jo. Hya, Bia, yeah, Bia, Bu, Bio. Bio. Pya, Pu, Pyo. A, I, U, oh, and the katakana now. A, I, U, O, why am I doing this? Mind you, why is it? Oh, A, I, U, O, Kaki, Kuke, Ko, Sashi, Su, Se, Sashi, Su, Se, So, Tachi, Su, Te, To, Nani, Nu, Ne, No, Ha, Hi, Hu, He, Ho, Ma, Mi, Mu, Me, Mo, Ya, Yu, Yo, La, Li, Lu, Le, Lo, Wa, O, Un, Ga, Gi, Gu, Ge, Go, Za, Ji, Zu, Ze, Zo, Ta, Chi, Su, Te, To. Wait a minute. Za, why did I do that? We're on to the Gagis. Did I get it right? Did I say it right? Da, Ji, Zu, Ze, Zo. No, I don't know. Da, Ji, Zu, De, Do. Da, Ji, Zu, De, Do. Ha, Hi, Hu, He, Ho. Pa, Pi, Pu, Pe, Po. Kya, Kyu, Kyo. Sha, Shu, Sho. Cha, Chu, Cho. Nya, Nyu, Nyo. Pya, Ya, Hya. Hya, Hyu, Hyo. Mya, Mu, Myo. La, Lu, Lo. Pya, Pu, Na, Pya. Gya, Gyu, Gyo. Ja, Ju, Jo. Ju, Jo. Bia, Bu, Bio. Pya, Pu, Pyo. Yeah. Well, that was fun. What's it learn here? I've learned. I know all now. Well, not really. Siege, you say? Learning is a game. You grow a garden of memory. Memories begin life as seed. You nurture them in your greenhouse and then harvest them in your garden. I don't have an account. Seeds, greenhouse, garden. See, seeds are new words. Greenhouse is short memory and garden's long memory. Next. Yeah, well, I know all them, so I'll do them. Yeah, fuck off. I'll do them some other time. I bookmarked it. It'll help with these 94 sounds. You don't use Romaji, do you? I don't like Romaji. Damn you, Romaji, I saw you. N4's the easiest one, I think, or is it N5? What is the easiest one? Who cares? Click that. 1, 2, good enough. R-E-O-L. Oh, this, no, R-E-K-K. Show, ba, showbo, showbyo show. Fire station. Showbyo show is fire station. That's good. There's no Romaji here. There's a Kanji over there. With no Romaji, that's nice. Alright, look at it some other time. Finish this list off. Mnemonics are boss. Memorize. Writing, speaking along with flashcards helps. America. Ginno. America Gin. No. America Gin. American person. You're a Yank. America Gin. No. America Gin. No. Was that Itchy? Is that an Itchy? Itchy on 14. America Gin 14. What years old? America Gin 14 years old. Possibly. What is that? I don't know what that is. Dude, you just became a personal hero. 30 months pile up. Holy shit. Blah blah blah. Domo arigato go zaimasu. No, gozaimasu shita. What does that mean? Seeing this mashita, I need to learn what that is. Here comes all the Japanese. I have to use Romaji. What does mashita mean? Not bloody Korean. Shimashita. Shimashita. Shimashita is a polite past tense form of doing something. Kino benkyo shimashita. Is there a she there? There's no she there. And if you vote with ta, mashita is the polite past tense of a word. Tabe mashita, ate. Nomi mashita, drank, etc. Shimashita is the polite past form of doing something. Shimashita comes from infinitive sulu, meaning to do. Conjugations of sulu, irregular verb, not lu. Verb present, shimas. Present neg, shimasen. Past, shimashita. Past neg. What is a neg? Negative. Present negative. Present neg, shimasen deshita. I played tennis. Play in this case is used as to do. Watashi wa lanisu. Was that te? Oh no, it's ten. Tennis. Alright. Watashi wa tennisu o shimashita. Play is to do. I to do tennis. I tennis to do. Study Japanese, not to study Benkyo suru ha Nihongo. I knew that was Nihongo, you don't have brackets. O Benkyo Kyo suru. So let's read did. Shimas is to do. Shimas is to do. Shimasta is did. Alright. Replacing su with shita makes it past tense. It can also be further shortened to shita, still meaning the same as shimashita. This is more plain speaking. So mashita, mashu. What did you say then? Domo arigato gozaimashita. Yeah, I wonder why she said mash. Does that make sense? Mashita. Or it said whatever. Polite past tense of the verb sulu. I suppose it's. I don't know. Oh, my brain's rotting. If only my university course had the same approach to kanji concerning learning to read them, learning to them. Well, I'm commenting. Blah, blah. Another kanji book with thinking other radicals. Dialu's 2001 kanji. Out of print now, second-hand book going. Ugh. Awful layout, huh? Shit layout. Why do I want it then? Layers of Hessig and Henschel into parts and give stories. Typesetting of this book are awful. The kanji were drawn in by an amateur, probably the author. It was photocopied and cheaply bound. Sounds good, that. Oh, let's finish reading this. Was. Or did. I prefer did. Okay, let's say I meant did. Let's go back to this one. Domo. That's very much. Domo arigato. Thanks. Very much thanks. So thanks very much. Gozai mashita. Gozaimasu means... Gozaimasu is just a polite term, so gozaimashita is a polite term too, maybe. Let's see what it says for gozaimashita. Gozaimashita. Thank you very much. The arigato gozaimasu is mashita. Let's see what this one says. Mashita is past tense, so you use it when someone did it to you in the past. When it's already done, gozaimasu is the present tense. You use it when someone is going to do something good to you from now. Right. Okay. So for present, arigato gozaimasu. Mashita is past. This one's already written the thing, so that one's said at Mashita. Okay. Hooray, learned. I started my Japanese lesson using Pimslers. I got 2/3 of the way through until Unit 3 when I realised I wasn't so much learning language as learning how to say things. I don't consider it a waste of time though, because I do remember what I learned. Vocabulary especially, and some of the conjugation sentence structure. Plus, they're right when they say you must say these things out loud. Each lesson begins with dialogue, vocab, concepts. Previous this, previous that. Right now I'm using Japanese Pod for vocabulary. 250 Essential Japanese Kanji, both volumes Hessigs. Found your site, love it. Going to go through things and wow, nice list. Writing person, years of school. Writing kanji or not is very whatever matter, but it will help certain people and it will slow down certain others. In my case, it does help. Even when learning the first few grades, say 500 kanji. Being able to write means you can imagine it, and also your mind will remember the stroke order you write over and over again. Thus you'll be able to distinguish lookalikes more easily. Only being able to read a kanji when you see it means you'll only see a blur in your mind when you try to recognize it from others. Post-inspiration, I'll live in Japan, really sick of not being able to talk to my co-workers. Research and study methods. So confused. High 6. Oh good, we did it. Oh, blah, blah. More comments, fine. What more? Put off kanji far too long. Hasiks. Ever forget that word? I don't know what that word is, because I remember this one time I tried so hard to recall it, and after about 10 minutes I got it. From that moment on I could always recall it. I used to have a theory that if I almost forgot a word or phrase, but then managed to pull it out of nowhere, I'd always remember it. Most of that does work. So satisfying. 2 mistakes. It was the night before my flight for a short vacation back to America, and since this was my first time travelling from home to destination by myself, very anxious. Really hate cartoon character Maguru Fukuso. I think he's extremely creepy, but boyfriend does a really good impression of him. I was freaking out all the things I had to do last minute before my flight, running through my laundry list, a task in my head. He starts doing that creepy laugh of Maguru Fukuso, and I ended up saying, no, Molly, so, is it, what is that? Zo, Molly Zo, Gan, Molly Zo, Gan, Gulo, Ga, Big, Gadai, whatever that is, at the end there, and E. And he busts out laughing, saying, what the hell is Molly Zoo? Molly Zo, Gangulo. Imagine a friend woodland creature, not exactly a grammar mistake, but hilarious. A fried woodland creature. My other one involved a young student of mine. She's in 1st grade, her younger brother is kindergarten. I asked her where he was, she said he was on a trip or something. When he asked something involving the class, so I asked something like that. Kuno, and she looked at me puzzled and asked, I got pwned by a 6-year-old. I felt stupid, but it was kind of funny. Thanks for sharing experiences. Lived in Japanese 9 years. Alright, no more comments. Let's read this one again. Shimashita comes from infinitive of sulu, meaning to do. Conjugations of sulu, irregular verb, not lu. Verb, present, shimasu, shimas. Present neg, shimasen, Past, shimashita. Past neg, shimasen deshita. You can say, I played tennis. Play in this case is used to do. Watashi wa tennisu o shimashita. I study Japanese. Benkyou suru Nihongo o benkyou suru. Not sure what that first one is. I have this help. It's did. Shimas is to do, and replacing su with shita makes it past tense. It can also be further shortened to shita, but still mean the same as shimashita. This is a more simple, plain speaking though. Polite past tense of verb sulu, to do. Nani o sulu, what will you do? Nani o shimashika, what will you do polite? Nani o shita, what did you do? Nani o shimashitaka, what did you do polite? Nani o shimashitaka. Benkyou sulu, I will study. Benkyou shimas, I will study. Polite. Benkyou shimashita, I studied. Shimashita. Okay. Was Google Translate. Something had been done. Past tense. Oh, what's this? Nothing about learning Japanese. Let's move on. This one. Do this again. Alright. Arigato gozaimasu and mashita. My mashita is past tense. You use it when someone did it to you in the past, when it's already done. Mas is present tense, so you use it when someone is doing something or going to do something. Native Japanese. Thanks. Quick, simple, to the point. I was making conclusions from watching so much anime, but I guess they were right. If something has already been done for you, arigato gozaimasu. Arigato gozaimasu. mashita can be used. It is often used by clerks at the store and office in the service industry. Arigato gozaimasu. Arigato gozaimasu is a general way of saying thank you. It can be used for either something that will be done or something that has been done. I couldn't have stated it better. Basically, you can never use the past tense form mashita for something that hasn't been done for you yet. What's the difference between arigato gozaimasu and arigato gozaimashita? Gozaima is used to make some phrases polite. Arigato informal. Arigato, thank you. Arigato gozaimasu formal. Arigato gozaimasu, thank you. Ohayo, good morning. Informal. Ohayo, good morning. Ohayo gozaimasu, formal. Ohayo gozaimasu, good morning. When talking to your social superior, gozaimasu should be added. Mashita is the past tense of a verb. Click here to learn more about verbs. Click. To go. Ikamasu. Ikimasu. Ikimasu. That one's E then. Ikimasu. The present. To go. Ikimasu. To go. Past. Ikimashita. Ikimashita. Alright. To go. The present. I'm going now. So, I'm going now. Ikimasu. I've gone. I went a while ago. Whatever. I go earlier. Ikimashita. To eat. Tabemas. Tabemasu. Tabemashita. So I'm eating now. Tabemashita. I've already and we're eating then. If something that has already been done for you, arigato gozaimashita. Arigato gozaimashita can be used. It is used by clerks at store and office service the industry. Arigato gozaimasu. Arigato gozaimasu is a general way of saying thank you. It can be used for either something that will be done or something that has been done. What's this? Oh, it moves. Ikaga. Ikaga is. I couldn't see Ikara, so I saw Ikaru, but Ikaga is how. Yes, how. Ikaga. Next. Oh, bollocks. So, bookmark. Let's have a look at this, all about verbs. Japanese verb groups. All about verbs. One of the characteristics of the Japanese language is that the verb generally comes at the end of the sentence. Since Japanese sentences often omit the subject, the verb is probably the most important part in understanding the sentence. However, verbs form are considered to be difficult to learn. The good news is the system itself is rather simple as far as memorizing certain rules. Unlike the more complex verb conjugation of other languages, Japanese verbs do not have a different form to indicate the person, first, second, third person, the number, singular and plural or gender. Japanese verbs are roughly divided into 3 groups according to their dictionary form, basic form. Group 1, U-ending verbs. The basic form of Group 1 verbs end with a U. This group is also called consonant stem verbs or godan verbs. Hanasu, to speak, hanasu. Kaku, to write. Kiku, to listen. Matsu, to wait. Nomu, to drink. Nomu. Group 2, ilu and elu ending verbs. The basic form of Group 2 verbs end with either ilu or elu. This group is also called vowel stem verbs or ichidan verbs. Iru ending verbs, kilu to wear, miru to see, okiru to get up, oliru to get off, shinjiru to believe, eru ending verbs, akaru to open, agelu to give, deru to go out, neru to sleep, taberu to eat. There are some exceptions. The following verbs belong to Group 1, though they end with ilu or eru. Hairu to enter, hashiru to run, iru to need, kairu to return, kagiru to limit, kiru to cut, shaberu to chatter, shiru to know. Alright, hairu, hashiru, ilu, kailu, kagilu. Irregular verbs. There are only two irregular verbs, kulu to come and sulu to do. The verb sulu is probably the most often used verb in Japanese. It is used as to do, to make, or to cost. It's also combined with many nouns of Chinese or Western origin to make them into verbs. Here are some examples. Benkyou sulu, to study. Benkyou sulu, study. Ryokyo sulu, ryoko sulu, to travel. Yushu sulu, yushu sulu, to export. Dansu sulu, dansu sulu, dansu sulu, dansu sulu, to dance. Shampoo sulu, shampoo sulu, shampoo sulu, to shampoo. Learn more in that. So I'll try and find that other thing I was looking for. Alright, this is pretty short, I'll read this. Japanese is full of those characters originating from China. The trouble for most learners seems to be to remember their readings. There are numerous ways to memorize at least that. One of them is called the movie method, invented by a member over at kanjikuhi.com. This is very helpful, but as you know, there are not only whatever that is, me, that's me. Don't know. Oh, that's sound. Sound, something, and me. But also, oh wait a minute, clear, possibly? Sound, clear me. But also, a river, and that other thing again. Oh, well, that's not a river, that radical to the right of it. That one's high, I think. Is that high? Maybe. No, I don't think so. And once you learn vocabulary, you run into the problem that words can have the same reading, and you have to remember them. One method to remember the reading of words written in kanji is to look at the words. Let's say Nihongo and remember it as that, but what if the same character has a number of readings because it is used in other words containing that kanji? This is what seems to make the process more difficult than it is. But how can you make the seemingly difficult problems of having to remember many readings for one kanji almost as easy as learning ABCs? Impossible. You say no! Here's the trick. Let's say you want to learn that and the one that means life, raw, birth. If you look at the kanji to the left of say, can you spot a familiar part? Yeah, there's sun, there's child beneath it, and there's that other part. You spot his familiar part. Let me help you. It is that, a child. You know the one from words such as that, do, mo, right? In that. However, it is pronounced ko and not ko. Ko. Alone as in kodomo. The trick is to connect the reading of a word you're trying to learn to one element of a kanji, and not the kanji as a whole. To remember it, this is because one kanji can still have numerous readings. In case of that, it can be aka, asu, asui, or ko. Let's examine another word containing a kanji from before. That with that thing. This time the reading of the left kanji is asu. Can you think of any word which contains asu as well? If you say that thing in e, as in hot, referring to weather, you've come up with the perfect word to connect this reading to one part of that. That's ni, can mean day or sun. Nichi, and Nichi and something else. He, Nichi, he, can mean day or sun. In case the thing is sun, because it fits the word. What would you never do when it's hot? Wearing warm clothes, correct? So once you connect asu to Nichi in the left kanji for this word, that you will never forget the reading for it. That is then easy to remember as being read as asugi, which means wearing thick clothes. The only problem is that this trick doesn't work with all kanji. For instance, that bright, which I think is a perfect example for this problem. This kanji became read as akusu, akarasu, akai, kari, akarui, akarusu, aki, anasmu, amu, rumu, akarumu. Have I been saying su for that? No, that's not su. Rasu, ramu, lumu, aki, raka, aku, kulu, ake, akelu, mio, min, or may. And you can't simply go and say, I connect it with one of the two parts making up this kanji. The only way is to remember it is in combination with the kanji or hiragana that precedes or follows it. Sho, may, haku, or myo. Once you get used to connect readings to any parts of kanji, you will have no problem forgetting how to pronounce a word anymore. This trick should also help you learn new words. Alright. Next. Subconscious learning, an uncommon method to learn Japanese. Listening to Japanese music while studying the language can have synergistic benefits. When faced with the daunting task of trying to learn a language perceived to be as difficult as Japanese, many learners are afraid to take the plunge, so to speak. However, in addition to standard learning practices such as memorization exercises, conversation practice, there's another method which is both fun and effective: listening to music in Japanese. Regardless of what style of music you like, we'll be able to find something in Japanese you enjoy, whether it's rock, rap, metal, ska, blues, or even country. Of course, there is always the ever-popular J-pop as well. Remember when you were a kid learning English and you learned a bunch of songs, the ABC song, Ring Around Rosie, How Much That Dog in the Window? In many cases, especially as you were first learning to speak, you learned the words of the songs phonetically, because you even knew what they meant, and the learning was reinforced because you enjoyed the song. The same principle applies to learning songs in a new language. There are a few things going for you. Your songs will get stuck in your head and you'll go around the house singing them, thus reinforcing your new language. You'll be learning grammar constructs through songs that you haven't encountered yet, but you have some... Did I read this already? I think I did. So consciously absorb them. Then when you actually do learn that construct in your lessons, you'll have a light bulb moment and think, that's what she was saying in the song. You'll remember it from the point forward. You'll continue to expose yourself to language, which has been proven beneficial for language learners. So while it's unlikely a Japanese teacher will bring some rock and roll to his class, you can still enhance your learning and enjoy doing so on your own. Began studying Japanese review. Japanese language survival, the art of circumlocution and word association. If you're planning a trip to Japan or have a need to speak Japanese, but don't have time to look up a word or constantly to get your message across, then try circumlocuting in Japanese. It's all explained right here. How to get around one's inability to speak in the target language by using circumlocution. I have read in linguistic books, grammar books, books on languages, etc. that this thing called circumlocution is a bad thing. I want to share with you the way I have used it with good success in getting across the meaning of what it is I was trying to say in Japanese without knowing the precise words at the time. Circumlocution is defined as a roundabout, indirect, or lengthy way of expressing something. Periphrasis. The reason why some grammar textbooks shun the use of circumlocution is because they always want you to express something in as little amount of words as possible. A term paper you might write at school will not be graded as highly if it's too wordy. I can agree with that reasoning, but when it comes to speaking in another language, I believe it doesn't matter how lengthy or wordy your expressions, as long as in the end you can get the meaning across. I'll show you how to use circumlocution in Japanese. How to use word association to master Japanese. A good goal when learning another language is to try to remember words so that you won't ever forget them. That is a lofty goal. You make absurd associations that are meaningful to you, and in this way, by making absurd associations between something that reminds you of the meaning of the word in Japanese, but sounds like that in English, the more absurd the associations, the less likely you forget them. Unless you forget the association related to the word you're memorizing. For example, Tanjo be equal birthday. Anchovies have birthdays too, or Tanjo be chilling because it's her birthday. Yo, what's up? Mentally picture a tan person named Joe talking ghetto because she be this and be that. You know what I'm saying? Get down and ghetto. You can speak Japanese fluently only if you try. So this tan girl or guy named Joe be hun. She be what? Who cares? As long as you can relate meaning to sound in a way that helps you remember the word until you reach the plateau of usefulness. Once a word that is new to you in another language is used from the very first time to the 50th time, you get better with each use of the word. Another good method I have found that when you are practicing your conversation skills, replace during the day any word that you would want and set aside 2 hours where you speak only in the target language at all costs. No matter what, you can always get your meaning across. If you can't practice this way and act normally in this type of situation, you won't be able to last long in the land of the rising sun. So how do you do it? Simple. Let's say you learn the word for paper that day, or you learn the phrase "hao migaku" to brush your teeth. Do you tell your mum or roommates or whoever you live with that you're going to brush your teeth? No, you say to them in Japanese, and to all who will listen and put up with your intense desire to speak fluently the Japanese language, "Ie ha o migakimasu," or something to that effect. Japanese word association examples. Sulu was the guy who would take over the ship in Star Trek. If Captain Kirk couldn't be there and he was a busy guy, Sulu was the guy who always was doing something. Make an association between the verb to do and the guy named Sulu on Star Trek. You'll never forget words if they're associated in a meaningful way to you. Sulu in Japanese is the verb to do. Alright, Sulu to do, Sulu to do. To do Sulu, Sulu to do Sulu. Sulu, do. Sulu to do Sulu. The other one, Shimashita, was it? Anyway, Sulu to do, and Sulu to do. Okay, done. Sulu to do. Sulu to do. Sulu to do. Another good thing would be to write in hiragana, Sulu. That's what I did with Ikaga, and I can remember Ikaga. How? So I was thinking, why bother with the kanji when I know hiragana? If I keep writing down hiragana like Ikaga in hiragana, just keep writing it, Ikaga, how, Doko, where, Sulu. So you got Sulu there, it's better to write down, yeah. Anyway, I know Neko's a cat. Neko, imagine Cleopatra with a long neck and a long neck cat called Neko. I don't really know Neko's a cat, I don't have to do his bollocks. Mimi, the little girl whose ears were so cute, you would always grab her by the ears. Oh, Mimi with honorific prefix means the honourable ears, the one affixed to your head. Where did you learn all this crap? You said they're learning all this shit if just for one word. What's it mean? What's all this mean? Mimi. Does it mean your head? Is that what it means? Fuck knows. It doesn't make any sense of this shit. Denki. The electric. Well, I know Neko is a cat, but look, you read all this shit, and then look, cat called Neko. All right. Oh wait, the little girl whose ears were so cute, you would always grab her by the ears. Oh, Mimi with the honorific prefix means the honourable ears. All right, I guess it means ears. Mimi means ears. Denki, the electric light is so very thin and dinky. In Japan, image, etc. Denki. What? Denki means dinky. Tofu can fly. Tobu means to fly, jump, etc. Tobu means to fly. Tobu. Moho shu. Free service. Muhoshu. Young children often cry in the dark. Cry in the dark. To sneeze is easy. In Japanese, it sounds more like what we actually do than the English word. To sneeze in Japanese, to sneeze is kurakushon suru. One of the first Japanese I learned was the "don't touch my moustache" or "do itashimashite." In Japanese, this means you're welcome. Do itashimashite. Now, don't go overboard with associations. There must be a point at which you can enter back into real study mode to pull out the real words and not just what they sound like. As always, gambate ne. Do your best. Makure Suki Sensei. Okay. Nihongo. Learning Japanese. Tips and tricks. Let's share your tips and tricks. Cram many vocabularies using J quick trends. I also try to speak every night at the izakaya. No matter they understand me or not, I play Japanese squabble with Japanese to quickly absorb new vocabularies. I read tons and tons of Japanese emails at work, so I'm now daitai accustomed to the politeness of written Japanese. If you have any tips or tricks, kindly share. Akunlogi, Kanji, Apu, Shimasho. using post-it notes. I'd write Japanese words or something, then stick it on the thing. Like the word for door, I'd put it on a door. The word for chair, I'd put it on a chair. It really helped seeing every day. Hardly had to work at memorizing. Post-it notes, yes, I should get some post-it notes. For things I can't write on my body parts, like Hidari on my left hand and Migi on my right hand. Hidari, Migi, Hidari, Migi. Hidari means left, Migi means right. So anyway. Of course, it only works for things you can stick notes on. Also flashcards, and I say the Japanese words into my microphone, then play it back and try to remember what it means. Post-it notes are a good idea. I should get some post-it notes. Stick it on everything. Cover the place. Well, it'll help a little bit, I suppose. Get conversation partners, Japanese people who are fluent and study partners. It helps to be able to constantly read or write, hold conversation in Japanese to help you with constant recalls. One thing I like to do is learn new forms of grammar and immediately start putting them to use. After a few days, you'll be able to use that type of grammar maybe 75% of the time when having conversations. I learned some new ways of saying things and I was able to immediately put them to use. A lot of people say to not practice every day, but I think it helps, even if it is a small amount. I try to use Japanese every day, whether studying or just reading and writing, typing. Every little bit helps. I do think it's very important to be able to write out hiragana, katakana, kanji. This has been one of my downfalls. I can't write 3/3 of the kanji that I can read. Writing helps you to memorize kanji to a point where you could probably read a lot faster. Try not to memorize what kanji symbols represent, but try to remember the readings. I don't know how many times I see kanji in other usage but don't recognize because I have only one particular way it's used. An I. Dai, big, maybe, I don't know. Dai, ki, ka, ta, la, sugu, ni, go, mi, ga, hi, hailu, fuck knows. The biggest incentive you can ever have is an economic one. If your ability to earn a living depends on functioning in Japanese, you tend to learn faster and retain more. I have to say that I get results from my Japanese proficiency tests and 6 of every month for my payday. That's a quote if I ever heard one. If you have any choice about which textbook to use, I recommend Learn Japanese New College Text. This text is in 4 volumes, tape is available and is published by University of Hawaii Press. They're far superior to any for Learn Japanese 10 minutes tape. Tapes you find, special order them if necessary, and count people who hate text I recommend. However, admittedly, it's been several years since I actually studied Japanese. There are very likely better texts available today, search the web, talk to people who are currently studying, may wish to post a question. Whatever text materials you use, do not skip over the part about pronunciation. Japanese has only 5 vowel sounds, make sure you aren't using any others. Good habits developed at this point will pay off later. There is no use working and memorizing words with the wrong pronunciations. This will only cause other troubles understanding you and trouble understanding them. Here are some things that tend to throw many English speakers about Japanese. There are no articles a, and the. In general, there are no plurals. The present tense and the future tense are one of the same. Adjectives conjugate, they have negative forms and past tenses, just like verbs do. The subject of the sentence can often be left out as kind of a part. There's no particular need to speak in complete sentences from an English speaker's way of thinking. Some grammatical markers can be left out of the sentences if they're obvious. Japanese has lots of pronouns and avoids using them whenever possible. There are 2 ways of saying every verb grammatically the same, but having different politeness levels. There is a continuative tense, so that in a string of verbs, only the final one need show whether the entire sequence is in the present, future tense, or in the past tense. Do the drills. No matter how boring they may be, do them. Hard work now, internalizing these patterns pays off later and being able to use them without particularly thinking about them. When you have a firm grasp of how to use a structure correctly, create tons of sentences using it yourself. Your goal is to be able to speak and hopefully to speak correctly. Make a sentence in your head or out loud. Drill yourself in every possible permutation of it that you're certain you can use correctly. Do not do this with structures you aren't sure about. This ties in with number 4 above. Too many people avoid this, think it'll be too much bother. Stepping away from the textbook drills and making your own original sentences mirrors exactly what you'll have to do in real life situations. Do it now and do it often. Then actual conversations where you have to make every statement yourself from scratch and not merely rearrange a textbook drill sentence will go so much smoother and be so much more enjoyable. If you face too much trouble now and no pressure is on you, do you really think it'll be any easier in an actual conversation? If you see a couple of words which you sound very similar, do not attempt to learn them on the same day. This will be confusing your head for years. Learn one now, leave the other for a week or so. No matter what a pain it is, learn to read, write hiragana, katakana systems as soon as you can. If you really seriously want to progress in your studies, there's no avoiding it. Also, start to learn the kanji as soon as possible. Don't rush it or burn yourself out, but don't neglect it either. A good knowledge of kanji will help you, not only in reading, but also help you to figure out new words you encounter in conversations. It's said that fire is both man's best friend and his worst enemy. Kanji can be either your best friend or your worst enemy in studying Japanese. Make friends with them as early as you can. You'll be glad you did. Wishing they didn't exist will not make them go away. Being illiterate in a highly literate society is no damn fun. If you are or will be in Japan, life will be much easier if you can read things for yourself rather than relying on a Japanese to hold your hand and wipe your ass for you. When you start to lose heart at your progress, turn back and look at lesson 1 or lesson 2. Try to remember when that lesson was kicking your butt the same way the lesson you are on now is kicking it now. You'll get it. Back off, give your subconscious a couple of days to work on it. It will be easy to understand when you come back to it. It's extremely hard to see your own progress because you're bogged down in whatever the lesson at hand is. Sometimes you need to turn around and look how far you've come. Do try to avoid what everyone seems to get into to some degree, making Japanese ability a contest. You speak as well as you speak. I speak as well as I speak. We're all going the same place and it's not a race. So some other guy knows a couple hundred kanji, but katakana still has you breaking out in cold sweats. Don't worry about it. I can read well over 1,000 kanji and remember very clearly when I thought that even having to learn 100 would surely burst my brain. Of course, I've been at it for over a decade now. If you work on it that long, you don't have to be a genius to pick them up. On the other hand, you would have to be pretty stupid not to, especially if you're in Japan the entire time. Dictionaries are crutches. Try to learn to walk without them if you can. If you're using them to look up a Japanese word that you have run across, first make your best guess about what the word means. Look at the situation the word is used in. Use all the knowledge you have of Japanese grammar to at least deduce what the part of speech is. Apply common sense. Figure out what is possible. Narrow it down to your best couple of choices. Then look it up. See if your idea was right. If it was, you feel like a genius. If it wasn't right, that's okay too. Now go back over your reasoning and see where you went wrong. Try to keep that situation and that usage in mind. If you hear the same word later in a different situation, try to figure out what those situations have in common. It's important to develop the skill of deducing vocabulary from context. Practicing as outlined above is important. Like any skill, the more you do it, the better and faster at it you get. Until someday you find that combined with your kanji study, you can often pick up words on the fly in a conversation, turn around and use them right back at your conversation partner, who won't have a clue that was the first time in your life you had ever heard it. When choosing words to memorize, ask yourself, do I normally use the English equivalent of this word? If the answer is no, then leave the word for later. You have more important stuff to remember. Given a choice of learning 10 new nouns or 1 new verb, learn the verb. Given a choice of learning 10 new verbs or mastering 1 new verb, tense, learn the verb tense. You can pick up nouns during a conversation relatively easily, either by pointing, drawing, or describing. Anyway, in Japanese you can often be a bit vague and there are techniques for getting around using the noun at times. It is not so easy to pick up a new verb during conversation. It's much more difficult to try to work out new verb tenses from conversation. Japanese verb conjugations are very irregular, so that if you learn a new tense conjugation, it's very, very easy to apply it to every verb you already know. If you know more tenses and verbs, you can often describe the noun you want to know and have your partner teach it to you on the spot. Making mistakes goes with the territory. Not being able to recall a certain word or tense during a conversation and then suddenly remembering it just after the conversation is over is normal. It happens to everybody. Go ahead, chastise yourself, feel stupid. That's good for you. It makes you more determined not to let it happen again. With enough practice and enough time of this happening, they do start to gradually decrease. Wa and ga confuse the hell out of everybody. Don't feel like the Lone Ranger with ni, dare and wo. You are on a more solid ground and can expect someday to get a very firm handle on them. It'll come, you'll get it. During the drills, if your mind goes blank on you, let it, but continue with the drills. Just go with the flow. Trust your first instinct and you'll be surprised to find that quite often it is correct. Unless you're studying for a graded course, study only as long as it's fun. The second it starts to feel like work, put it down, leave it for a day or two. Haven't studied for a week, few weeks, months, don't feel bad, just go back at it. Rome wasn't built in a day. Presumably when you decided to study Japanese you had in mind the goal of becoming somewhat proficient in it. It's sort of hard to reach that goal if you let yourself develop a hatred of the language while in pursuit of your goal. For kanji recall, I recommend using some sort of small reference book, not a textbook, or perhaps conjugation with a textbook. Start at the beginning. Read the section about stroke order and stroke count. It looks like bullshit now, but if later you ever need to look up kanji in a dictionary, this will be a very valuable skill. Use your finger and trace out the kanji on your palm, thigh, whatever. Do that several times, envision it. Try to remember at least one meaning, one reading, or both. Make sure to remember whether a reading is a kan or a non-reading. This will come in handy later. Get a piece of notebook paper, use a ruler to mark it off in grids big enough to hold one kanji each. On the paper, write every kanji you can think of. Go until you just can't go anymore. Now go back through your little handy reference book and see which ones you missed. Mentally kick your own butt. Wait a while, do it all over again. Hopefully you will have gotten the ones you forgot on the previous go. If you work on this diligently, you should be able to increase your recall dramatically. Perhaps over 90% of all kanji you've learned.